Hello, how's everybody? Hi. We flew in not yesterday, but Saturday, and it was the longest trip we've ever taken because we've never been to Europe before. And usually I try to be a very respectful traveler. Oh yeah, thank you. The assist. You know, it's tight, confined spaces on a plane, so I try to be really respectful of other people's space. But after hour 6 in Toronto on our layover, and I was finally able to board the plane, I was the jerk that took my shoes off and probably made the plane smell like surströmming. Where do you? Okay, so you go to. Okay, let's figure this out. While we're waiting for Amy to figure this out, okay, I need your guys' help with something because my grandma's been calling me frantically from the United States. She's been watching way too much Fox News, and she lives in the country and is very isolated and doesn't have the internet. So she's like, "Are you guys okay? You're in Sweden? Did you make it there? Are you all right? Are you safe?" And I was like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, you know, it's so dangerous there that women cannot leave their homes." So I was like, "What?" And so I'm here, and you guys all seem like very safe, normal people. So I just want you to help me out. I want to send her a video of you guys telling her that everything's okay, okay? So I'm just gonna, wait, a video? Okay, so just repeat after me. Hi, Grandma.
Hi, Grandma.
The girls are okay.
The girls are okay.
We promise not to murder them. Okay, so now that that's on video, it is legally binding, and we are safe.
No one's allowed to murder us in this room. So if you didn't notice, we're twins.
Yeah, this is Amy, and I'm Jen, and we run a branding agency called Hoodzpah Design Company, and we work with a lot of small startups, doing all of their identity work and social campaigns and that kind of thing.
And we're based out of Newport Beach, California, which is sort of south of LA a little bit. And for any of you in here who are 30 and older, you probably know us mainly for Seth Cohen and Marissa Cooper from the OC. Anybody? Yeah? We're the only ones? Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe our misguided housewives from the OC Housewives. That's also where we live. Yes, I see the girls in the front are very enthusiastic. And so yeah, that's where we live, and it's a crazy place, but it's also really fun.
So these are some of the smaller startup companies that we've done some work for. These are some branding clients that we had that you've never heard of. And then we've also worked with some larger companies that you probably have heard of, doing more projects and campaigns that carry on the branding that they've already done. Here's an example of some recent work we did with ESPN on some custom cleats. And then Facebook contacted us recently about doing a custom sticker pack for them for flu season, which is in high swing in February, March. So these are free right now on the Facebook sticker page if you want to download them. It's full of germs and despair, and you should spread them like the germs they are.
And we also have been trying to figure out that passive income game, right? So making money while you're asleep, the dream that we all, aim to aspire to. And so we started this good lines called Odds and Sods, and it's basically just bandanas and enamel pins and those kind of easy little things that are one size fits all. It's an easy purchase. And we're not above bribery. So if anybody tweets in a question using the IIF 2017 hashtag and the moderators pick it, we will give you free pins at the end of the conference. So
just find us afterwards if they pick your questions. So today we're talking about spontaneous storytelling.
And mainly we're talking about it in the context of social media, right? There's all these really awesome new venues via social media, whether it's Instagram stories or Facebook Live or Twitch streaming. There's all these really awesome opportunities for us to be really vulnerable and really personal with our audience. And so spontaneous storytelling could be anything from responding to a commenter on your blog to posting an Instagram story about something that's going on in your office to responding to a tweet that somebody has mentioned your brand in. It can be anything, and it's something that unless you're really prepared to tell the story of your brand, and unless you're really passionate about what you do and why you do it, you won't be prepared for these spontaneous interactions. And so really that's what we're talking about today, is just how to prepare for what happens when it's a two-way conversation, when someone comments on something you've posted, and now you know it's not just you putting content out there, right? And just constantly, like Morton was talking about, the buy, right? Just me talking at you. It's also a listening thing. It's also a two-way street, like any kind of communication. So it's learning how to respond in turn.
So we're not saying that spontaneous interactions like the live social and all this will replace curated content, but you have to embrace both of them. So when we talk about spontaneous in our context, we're thinking of it as in spontaneous combustion. Because a lot of times when we look at these brands that have these viral campaigns on social media, they seem to explode out of nowhere. And you always think, oh, I wish I could do that, but it just seems like lightning in a bottle. But really, as with spontaneous combustion, there's this hidden process that's going on, this preparation that leads up to that moment where a spark is grabbed hold of and it turns into this flame. So even though we're saying, yes, act spontaneously, there is a lot of preparation you can do to be ready for that. And that's why we're excited about it. The only problem is a lot of us in our day-to-day human fear, we smother that spontaneous opportunity. And it's because we have these perfectionist tendencies that say, oh, this project isn't quite ready yet. This live video isn't going to be curated enough. I don't know how I can control this situation enough. And so we let fear smother the potential for us to be that open and that spontaneous with these interactions. Oh, cool. And this can manifest itself in a couple different ways.
So one of the ways that we kind of let fear narrate our story instead of taking hold of it ourselves is through isolation. Okay, so how many of you guys here are freelancers working for yourself? Okay, a few of you. How many work for a smaller or medium-sized company? And how many of you are at a bigger, mega corporation like an H&M or a Volvo? Okay.
So mega?
Yeah. So no matter where you're at, there's a lot of ways that you can become isolated. It's not always just because you're a freelancer working for yourself and working from home and not having that human interaction. Sometimes you're surrounded by people, but you're still isolating yourself and you're isolating your ideas. And that happens because you get too type A personality over something, right? You have to control every aspect of it, and you begin to smother it. You're not allowing other people to weigh in and let iron sharpen iron and, create a sharper idea. And it becomes kind of like this Gollum scenario, right? It's your precious idea that you can't share with anyone, and you don't want to share that process online because somebody might take that idea or they might take it and do it better, right? It's this constant fear. And I watch a lot of murder mystery TV, so I watch a lot of Forensic Files, and it's how every Forensic Files ends, right? What starts out as like this fiery, passionate romance soon kind of breeds this isolationism, right? It's just, you only have eyes for each other. You don't want to hang out with your friends anymore. It's just you and this other person. And then soon that isolationism turns into infatuation. And then infatuation turns into jealousy. And then jealousy turns into murder. And we're not really talking about murder in the sense of, like you are getting murdered. We're talking about the murdering of an idea, the holding it so close that you don't share it with others and you don't invite them into that conversation that not only educates them on your brand and what you're doing, but helps get really critical feedback from your demographic.
Mm-hmm. And another way we act out of fear is because we're afraid of being transparent. Either it's the imposter syndrome of being like, if I share this, how I'm doing something, or if I let people into my behind-the-scenes action on these live streaming venues, what if they say, you're doing it wrong, or you should be doing this instead? We're worried that they're going to call us out. Or we're worried that, like you said, you're going to steal the idea. But some of the most amazing times in human advancement have happened when people have been open with sharing their information. And it's still something that's really lauded in the science community, which is this, publishing of even just, research and findings and helping build upon what everyone else is doing. And that's something that in business we're very fearful of doing because we're thinking more about holding things close just for us. But your clients are someone that you can let in on the process. And you can bring that in and help enlighten them and educate them on what you do and how you do it. And that will only build in a respect for what you do if you do it right. There's this really great documentary, actually. If anyone's looking for something to watch on Netflix, I'm not paid to say this, but it's a really good movie. It's called Chuck Norris versus Communism. And they basically talk about Romania in the 80s, and there was a communist dictator, and he was controlling all the information that was coming into the country. And so because of that, they got very behind the times in their culture, and they didn't understand what was changing in the world around them. And they were almost like stuck in time, like that little fly in the amber molasses thing on the staff of the guy in Jurassic Park, you know, just like frozen in time. And soon this guy started bringing in movies and stuff from the outside world, and you know, this
like a black market.
And this free flow of ideas ended up spurring a revolution. So you don't want to be a dictator about your information. So all of these things breed monotony, right? We've all seen it, like the same tired posts that worked once, so we kind of fall back on them because it's easy. You know, a picture of a mountain with like a handwritten, like, you know, inspirational quote over the top, or whatever it is. You know, the coffee shot from above, like these things that feel very easy, an easy way to connect with your audience. And it's easy, but it's like this Chinese water torture, right? It's just going with the flow. It's not really setting yourself apart. And it breeds regularity instead of uniqueness.
And so fear breeds extinction, pretty much. And whether you're too afraid to invest in these live social platforms or you're afraid to make some other business decision, making any decision based out of fear is not good for you. You know, scientists have found that these flies that can act spontaneously at a moment's notice and go against years of, you know, their routine and habits are actually more likely to survive and thrive because they become unpredictable to their predators, and because they're able to tap into previously unfound resources. And that's the same for companies. We have to be willing to break out of our routine and take those calculated risks so that we can, you know, stay on top of the game and also find new potential audiences that we haven't met yet.
So fear breeds extinction, and that's like in the animal kingdom sense, but it's also in the creativity sense, right? I think about it a lot when, you know, these big major companies announce that they're going to do a rebrand, and we all get super excited. Oh, what's it going to look like? And then they release the logo, and it's so homogenized that now every brand looks exactly the same as every other brand. It's like everyone saw the Helvetica documentary and was like, yeah, let's do that. And instead of, you know, being unique and different, you know, everyone's just going in the same direction. And it breeds regularity. And I don't want to be regular. So, okay, what's your name? Caroline. Okay, so let's say you die. And
there's a lot of death in this talk. It's like
we watch a lot of murder mystery shows. Okay, so you die, and I go to the gravestone cutter, and I say, okay, I want to get a gravestone cut for Caroline, and I want it to say, here lies Caroline, a regular girl. Would you be bummed if I said that? Sure. Yeah, you want to be extraordinary, don't you? I want to. And so if we want our brands to be extraordinary, we can't just be regular. And sure, it's good to have a plan, a social media plan. It's good to, you know, you have to do the hashtags and you have to know when to post. And all those things are really important. But if you do it at the right time and you do the right hashtag and you do everything right to get the audience member to find your content, but then your story is just lackluster and regular, then it's kind of all for naught. It's really, the story trumps everything.
So here's a few quick guides to spontaneous social and embracing these new live streaming methods and embracing the opportunities to just chat very casually and off the cuff with your demographic. It's something very powerful that's worked throughout all history and is still true today.
Because really, the fundamentals of communication have always been the same, right? The only difference right now is that we're talking about social media because that's the tool at our disposal. That's something that I think it's over 90% of the world has access to a mobile device and a smartphone that allows them to get on Instagram or Facebook. It's the great uniter. And so it's got the most potential for us to reach the broadest audience, right? But really, communication has always been the same. So there's no reason to fear this live streaming or like any kind of new live media, because if you know how to tell your story, you already know how to do it. It's already innately inside of you. It's just kind of figuring out, you know, okay, how does this different form of media, you know, differ a little bit from the next one, and using that to your advantage. Like FDR in Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Sorry, I'm American, so I assume everyone just knows our history. You know, we have egos like that. But FDR, back in the Great Depression, he was president. And it was a really tumultuous time in America, right? Not only was it the Depression, but after that, it was World War II. So people were very scared and very unsure. And FDR started reaching out to people via radio. And at that time, radio was kind of like social media. 90% of Americans had a radio in their home. So we started doing these things he called fireside chats. And it was basically him purposely talking very casually and very off the cuff about very scary issues, and just letting people know that he was listening and that he understood. It's not necessarily that he fixed the problem or he solved anything. He just let them know, hey, I'm here and I'm on your level. And he spoke to them conversationally. And because of that, even though it was a crazy time, he was elected to 4 consecutive terms, the most of any American president.
So probably the first most important thing we would say, which aligned a lot with what Morton said, is ditch the hard sell when you're on social media and using these live features. Like Morton mentioned, there's not only one way to connect with a potential customer. It's not always about buy, buy, buy. And I think with social media, that's so true. You're not really connecting with them on the buy level. You're connecting with them more on the interest-based connection. Like, hey, we have common beliefs, common core values. We like the same things. Let's hang out. It's very personal. So don't think about it as if you're talking to someone in a sales room or you're talking to someone at the mall in your store. You're talking to someone when they're in their pajamas, scrolling through their Instagram feed, drinking boxed wine. It's a very casual environment. So cut your tie off, loosen everything up and get a little bit more casual. A great person who does this on social media right now is Wendy's on Twitter. They're a kind of big brand hamburger fast food chain. They compete with McDonald's and Carl's Jr. and that kind of thing. They have the square patties. Their number one selling point is actually that they've never used frozen burgers. And so that's what they used to focus a lot on very seriously. But they started getting internet trolls who were like, no, you guys use frozen beef, And they started realizing that if they spoke more off the cuff and kind of snarkily, hit back at these trolls, they were getting way better feedback. So they kept rolling with this trend. And so someone, a user on Twitter says, hey, Wendy's, where do you get your square cows? And Wendy's says, at a farm a few miles away from where most get their circle cows. So they're starting to respond to stupid tweets with also yeah, we're in on the joke. We can speak like real humans. We're not just a person in a suit who has to follow by our brand guidelines. Here's another one they tweeted out. Carla says, Wendy's, what should I get from McDonald's? Wendy's says back to them, directions to the nearest Wendy's. So this seemingly off-the-cuff style is probably something that once they realized it worked, they started really doing a lot of research and development and planning for. It seems very spontaneous, but I'm sure they've done a lot of prep work to get these kind of answers, under their belt and ready for when someone pulls the trigger.
So I think the second step to kind of figuring out your voice over social media through these live features is just to know that you're a lot more interesting than you think. Every time we talk to our clients and we try to encourage them to use these platforms, they always say, oh, I just don't really know what we would say or what people would find interesting. And I'm always just thinking in the back of my mind, how many of you guys have seen that American show Storage Wars? Anybody? No, really? Oh, good. Okay, one person, maybe 3. Okay, well, I'll tell you the premise. It's really simple. It's basically a bunch of dudes go to a storage locker unit, and when a storage locker is abandoned, they bid on the locker and try to sell what's in it for money. That's the premise. It's on its 7th season. People are watching this, and I guarantee you there'll be an 8th season. It's crazy. If there can be a show about that and, Ice Road Truckers and all these crazy reality shows.
Ice Road Truckers is interesting, yeah. But Storage Wars, the idea of it's so simple and mundane, and yet it's the personalities, right? It's the question of what's in this storage unit and how the heck are they going to sell this crap? And so just their passion and the fact that they're so amped about these old sofas and old things that they find, it makes it interesting. And so you can do the same thing.
It's all about the passion that you bring, right? If you're passionate about it, I'm going to be interested in it. So A great case in point of this is Casper Mattress Company. They're killing it at social media.
And you wouldn't think mattresses would be sexy. Like, mattresses are such a, like a boring, usually.
Even that Tom Brady ad for Beauty Rest was boring. That's how boring mattresses are.
Yeah.
But
Casper, like, totally broke out of that, you know, square box, you know, even though they ship all of their mattresses in a box. But they're doing really well on Twitter and on Snapchat and on these new media platforms. They have 93,000 followers.
And they're kind of like that friend that you invite over for, you know, just like a weekend of, you know, Netflix binging Gilmore Girls and ordering pizza in and not putting any makeup on. It's very casual.
Like, they never, ever link to their products. They're just talking to you on a common interest level. They're saying, hey, we like to sleep, we like to miss work, and we'd prefer to stay in on weekends. Are you with us? Cool. That's who we are. And so they're connecting on that level, and then if they make that demographic, you know, feel comfortable with them and align with them, those people are going to go to their profile, click on the link, and they'll find a way. I don't think you have to be worried about people finding your products. If you have a website and have done, you know, decent analytic research, they'll find it. This social media is more a place to be casual and just off the cuff. So, you know, they'll say
They
things.
also came up with this really hilarious app. And so if your friends invite you out on a Saturday night and you don't want to go out because you're sleeping in your super comfy Casper mattress bed, you can go to this website that they made, and they won an award for this. And you basically put your phone up to the screen, and they have all these different party scenarios that you can video.
So that you can tell your friends, oh, I'm busy, sorry, I can't hang out, when really you're just sleeping on your Casper mattress.
It's genius, right?
Yeah.
It's these fun little ways to get people interested in your social media story and get them sharing your content without asking for a hard sell, like a retweet, you know.
Yeah, and so this is helping their demographic also feel more spontaneous about interacting with them. It's showing like, hey, we're in on the fun, we're in on the joke.
And so you can, they have all these different scenarios. It's really funny. You should check it out.
So another great way you can use live social platforms is just using it to educate people on what you do and the ins and outs of your company or your organization. Surprisingly, someone who's doing a really awesome job at this is TSA in America. If you've ever traveled to New York or LA or anywhere in America, you had to go through the airport and get frisked, maybe put your bags through the x-rays and they look for bombs or whatever. TSA has a terrible reputation in America. Everybody really doesn't enjoy going through that process. I'm sure you don't either. And most of the time on the news, it's talking about what the TSA missed, you know, what went wrong. And so the TSA social media manager said, we need to start showing what we do find and start making this more of a lighthearted thing with these funny captions. So here, someone at the TSA agency found a knife hidden in a burrito. It looks like a bloody arm, but that's actually like a burrito. So, and that was, someone was trying to carry that on in their luggage. Number one, who brings a burrito on a plane? But number two, why did they stick a knife in the middle of it? They also found someone was trying to bring in a batarang. And if you look at the captions, it's funny. Holy purple projectiles, Batman. All batarangs, no matter the color, must be packed in your checked bags. So they use kind of funny language and these like spontaneous moments that they catch in real TSA screenings to teach a lesson.
And because of that, this government agency has 690,000 followers
On Instagram.
and it's definitely the most hated agency. Like it's like the DMV and then TSA.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing how they've completely turned the narrative in their favor.
I mean, they got rated by Rolling Stone as more, you should follow them higher than Beyonce in this
That's
like
crazy.
list. That's nuts.
That's crazy. Another really easy way to start using the live features on streaming is just kind of pulling the curtain away from the mystery of who's working for you, right? Showing who's pressing the buttons and who's pulling the strings at your company. And if that's too scary, or maybe it's the company's too big to maybe make that happen, maybe it's promoting your clients. Maybe that's an easier way to talk about yourself. A person who does this really well is MailChimp. And how many of you guys use MailChimp? Yeah, it's super popular. And
people who use them have that like sense of loyalty because you can feel that they really do care about the experience and connecting, and they do that all the way through into their, I mean, we don't show a lot of live social just because it was hard to capture and know when it would be good to show. Most of it only has like a 24-hour shelf life, so we're showing static Instagram posts, but yeah.
But yeah, MailChimp has this amazing work environment. The people that work there love the company because the company invests in them. And I feel that like that's a huge part of what you have to focus on when you're trying to figure out how to be spontaneous is you have to know your core brand values. You have to know your story and you have to be passionate about it. If you're not, it's gonna show through. If you're just doing social because everyone tells you you have to, it's going to show through. So figure out what you're passionate about, what makes your company exciting. It's not about selling mattresses for Casper. It's about being excited about, taking a nap in the middle of the day. It's about the joy of getting a good night's sleep. That's what they're pushing, not the hard sell of buy this mattress. So MailChimp does a great job of showing kind of who their team is. They have this hashtag Meet MailChimp where they feature a different person that works for them once a month. And not only does that kind of create a sense of trust among your clients, they're getting to see who they're interacting with, who's behind the scenes of this digital platform. It also helps these people who work for MailChimp feel a sense of ownership over the brand, and they want to start promoting it because they feel loyalty.
Along the same lines, you can show behind the scenes of how you make your product or good. A good example of this is Monvoir. She's a calligraphy artist that we know in the States. But she actually teaches people how to do her service on her live stories. And a lot of people would say, why would you do that? You're like literally training your competition. But because she's elevating herself as an expert in her field and showing that she's a teacher of these things, not just someone who does it and keeps it to herself, she's been offered so many crazy opportunities, and she's garnered a very loyal following. And to be honest, when you're really good at something, even if you do teach it to others, like there's a good likelihood if you're very good at it that you're still going to be better than most people. A lot of these talents that we all have, we're doing them in business because we're the best at them anyways. So pulling back the curtain and showing people how it's made, I don't think is risky. They're going to figure out one way or another. The internet exists. So you telling them.
You can Google anything.
Right, you can Google and learn anything. So why not just share it on your own and be helpful?
And I feel like the most important thing, we were talking about this last night at the speakers dinner, is the importance to listen and respond on social media. So many brands are good about putting out the content, but then when it comes to getting the feedback from your audience and really hearing what they think about how you're approaching your business or how you're approaching this product, we don't respond. We don't even read the comments. We don't take the time to make it a two-way conversation and really engage our audience so that they feel like they're a part of it.
And I think a lot of times it's because we can plan everything else on Hootsuite or whatever, and we get it like, everything's posting like clockwork, but we don't want to go back in and do that more spontaneous work of like responding, per person as it's, but it has value. It has so much value. We do this in our own, company. When we're doing designs and we have to whittle down some options, we like to post it to our audience and ask them to pick which ones they like the best. And then when they pick, we thank them, or we let them know the results of what the client picked as opposed to what they picked. It just is a way to get them involved, and it's almost like free, user research too. And they're way more likely to take a survey that you post casually on Instagram than they are to take one that you ask them to do via email. So.
And another great way to do this is through like Ask Me Anythings. If you're unsure what to live stream, do an AMA. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you get asked all the time by your client base. Maybe there's a common question that you're frequently asked. Start there, and then start reading as people comment live, and start answering questions on the fly. If you know your company, it'll be super easy, and it actually can feel a lot more conversational than planning out exactly what you want to say in a story.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to start.
So what we usually do is post these posts like a day or two before we do our live stream. We'll say, hey, we're going to do a live stream. We'll talk about this or that, or we'll demo how we make this or that. Here's what we're going to talk about, but also in the comment section, let us know what you want us to talk about. And then, as we're live going through it, Amy will help me moderate or whatever.
And we give them a list of topics to start, right? You give them a starting point. We say, hey, you can ask us about business. You can ask us about design. You could ask us about marketing. You could ask us about how we started our own business and how we're growing our social media base. Give them a place to start and let them know how you plan to frame the conversation, and then let it kind of take its own life from there.
The whole scary thing about this is in order to do it, we have to get uncomfortable. But it's so worth it. Anything in life that you have to get uncomfortable and go out of your comfort zone for, it ends up growing you as a person and growing your experiences and making you open and aware of things that you would never have experienced otherwise. And that's why a lot of us are afraid of these new opportunities and mediums, because there are internet trolls out there whose whole job in life is to, make us miserable. But, you can't hide behind a wall just because you're afraid of those people. You have to just confidently be out there and take autopilot off.
And it's as easy as just taking a different route home, right? There's really easy small decisions you can make in your life that can give you a new perspective or a new idea or a fresh look on your life. So take a different route home. Travel, whether it's to a different country or just across the hall to a different, part of your company, a different branch. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's, sales. Just try new things and talk to people that you wouldn't normally talk to. And it's an easier way of kind of controlling a little bit this uncomfortableness instead of waiting for life to just happen to you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Amy and Jennifer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Chocolate.
Ooh,
thank you.
So let's sit down for a while.
I'm going to stand because I'm too short for these chairs.
Okay.
We're midgets.
You guys are also tall here. I think Americans are shorter because we have the weight of our egos. You know.
So, do we have a question from the panel?
Did our bribery work?
Twitter has been
Very active.
running
It
hot.
works. It's so nice to give away stuff.
So giveaways is a good thing.
Yes.
But we start with a question here. So how do you select what channels you should be on?
Ooh, that one's hard. And I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't try to conquer everything just because it's there. Figure out which mediums you're getting the best response from, and then focus your efforts there. And first. And sure, you can still post to LinkedIn or still post to the other channels, but I would say focus your efforts where you're getting the best response.
And that does take playing the field for a while, right? So you have to get on Instagram, Facebook. We have profiles everywhere, but once we realized where our core audience or where our target demographic was, that's where we started focusing in our efforts. Everywhere else, we kind of just do the bare minimum to be visible there still, because we don't want to,
Miss any
ignore
opportunities.
anything either. Yeah, but we're probably most active on Instagram and Twitter, and we actually don't get very good, genuine or good interaction from Facebook. And then on Snapchat, it's just a little bit more personal, and so we act more as our own brand influencers for our company on Snapchat, which is a little bit different.
Okay.
Thank you. One more, I think. Do we have time for it?
Yes, we have time.
Yes. Where should I draw the line between personal versus serious? Is it a line for how personal I can get?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's different for every brand. I think it depends on your brand voice, right? Like Wendy's was that like snarky, like let's start a fight brand. And then Casper was more of like the fun girlfriend, like let's have fun, but let's keep it nice brand. So I think it really depends on your voice. Like Jen and I's voice is very casual, very off the cuff. We're from California. We talk too fast. I hope you got half of what we said. And that's kind of our brand. So we're very personal with how we promote our business, and we do it a lot on our own personal channels. But for a bigger company, maybe it's harder to have a personal face as the voice of the company, because there's a lot more risk, right? It's kind of like the Mark Cubans or the Donald Trumps of the business world, the people who are the face of their company. If they say something that offends someone, it's directly tied to their company. So I think you just have to think about your brand voice and your brand strategy and kind of do your best to tailor it from there.
We have time for more questions.
Let's do more.
I don't really know how many giveaways you have.
Oh,
we have so many.
We
You
have
have
so
plenty.
many. We have plenty.
So 3 is okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We
good.
can do 5.
So then we have Mr. C. Where's Mr. C?
Mr. C?
Over there.
Over there.
So if you had a 3-minute elevator pitch and wanted to point out your greatest learn, what would that be?
On social.
That's good.
I
I think it's just being transparent, even if it's about your failures. If you can show how you learned from something, even if it was something that you did wrong, people relate to that. They can relate to you when you seem human. We've all failed. We've all been there. So being as transparent as you can, and maybe you don't know everything, but you know something. You know your business and you know it well. So I think that's the thing that we've learned the most, is not being afraid to be really transparent. We were self-taught designers, and so we were really afraid to show our process for a really long time because we had that imposter syndrome of, oh no, they'll find out we didn't go to school for this. And then we realized that, that's this modern generation is, you have these online universities like Skillshare where you can learn a trade online. And so I think you just have to embrace how you came up,
how you made your business and let people in on that. And people will relate, and people who identify with you will gravitate towards your brand.
And become more loyal because of it, yeah.
You said that you said that you are interesting as a company, or people are interesting. Interesting. So, but I still think there is a risk. We are like, okay, is this relevant? Is there a risk that we are not relevant when we are doing this spontaneous things?
Like, I think that's the whole point of social, though, is that like it's just fun and frivolous, and I think you can, because it's trivial, it's easy to say to say it is pointless, and it is, like, to be honest, but it only has a 24-hour life cycle, most of this, and then it gets replaced by something else. But I think where there is value is just in making that human connection and saying, see, we're having fun, like, we enjoy this. And I think whether or not, there's, sorry.
Well, it's like even if your brand seems like it might not be interesting, there's some sort of story to tell.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I think you can find one angle that you can kind of work.
So there's no risk that you're not relevant, even if it's very simple content?
I mean, if a mattress company can do it,
well,
anyone can do it.
Yeah, because a lot of times even like on social, like these companies aren't talking directly about their product. They're talking about the lifestyle of the people who buy their product. And in that sense, they aren't relevant at all except to connect and relate to their core demographic, which is still very, like, it has a ton of value in that way, even though it seems frivolous.
So one last question before lunch.
All right. What's your best tips for brands who wants to be unique? How do you start?
Ooh, that is really hard. I think you have to first kind of make a list of, okay, what do I have in common with my competition? And then what sets me apart? And it could be as silly as, we're twins. We're twins who own a company, and people love twins. It's a walking freak show. And I think Jen and I realized that really early on, and it's a silly thing to say that this is what makes us different as a branding agency. It doesn't matter at all, but it's something that people are very interested in. So if that's what we have to use to meet someone in a hallway or an elevator to say, hey, we're interesting people. And guess what? We also do branding, and we can read each other's minds, so we're the best people for this job because 2 minds are greater than 1. Whatever it is that leads us to that sales pitch, it's something that grabbed their attention, and that's the hardest part, is grabbing the attention. Once you have it, we all know our businesses. It's easy from there to do the 3-minute sales pitch.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.